My parents forged my signature and gambled away my future. Now they're demanding my house. I'm done being their pawn. Hi there. I'm Emily Hawthorne, a tech executive who's worked hard to build a successful career and a life I'm proud of. I've always believed in the power of hard work and self-sufficiency, but little did I know, the very people I trusted the most, my own parents, would betray me in a way I could never have imagined. In today's story, I'll be sharing how I found myself entangled in a web of deceit, fraud, and manipulation. It's a journey that will take you through moments of shock, anger, and, ultimately, triumph. Stick around till the end to see how I fought back, took control, and reclaimed what was rightfully mine. And hey, if you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It'll keep me motivated to bring you more stories just like this one. Let's dive in. It was a Tuesday afternoon, just another usual day in my bustling life. I was reviewing quarterly reports at my desk, juggling spreadsheets, when the phone rang. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but the businesslike tone in the voice on the other end stopped me in my tracks. "Is this Miss Emily Hawthorne?" the woman asked, her voice cold and professional. I confirmed, my curiosity piqued. "This is Emily. I'm Julia Hart from Sun Coast Bank. I'm calling regarding the overdue payments on the loan for your beach property at 42 Ocean View Avenue." I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. There had to be some mistake. "I'm sorry, but I don't have a loan with your bank," I responded, my voice steady but my heart starting to race. Julia continued without missing a beat. "Our records indicate that a loan for $380,000 was secured against the property under your name. We've sent several notices but haven't received any response. The loan is now 3 months past due." My blood ran cold. The beach house. It was mine, completely paid for, with no debt attached. I'd made sure of that just last year, when I bought it outright with the success I'd earned after years of hard work in the tech industry. I was proud of it. My sanctuary. My escape. "That's impossible," I said, trying to remain calm. "I own that property free and clear. There's been a mistake." Julia paused, as if she was flipping through paperwork. "I have the documents right here, Miss Hawthorne. Your signature is on them, as well as the names of 2 co-borrowers, Albert and Sandra Hawthorne." I felt the world tilt. My parents, my mother and father, whose names had been forged onto a document they should never have touched. I was stunned, speechless. The last thing I expected was for them to betray me like this. "I need to see those documents," I said, trying to regain composure. "Send me everything." The email came through almost immediately. I opened the PDF with trembling hands and stared at what could only be described as a well-done forgery. The signature was almost an exact match except for one thing. I hadn't signed anything with Sun Coast Bank. As I stared at the page, a surge of anger built up in my chest. This wasn't just some mistake. This was deliberate. I picked up my phone and immediately called my best friend, Lily, who also happened to be a financial attorney. "Check your email," I said. "Tell me those documents aren't real." As Lily reviewed the files, I started to dig into my bank accounts, hoping for some explanation. But there was nothing. My beach house deed was still under my name, and no transaction had taken place. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then, my phone buzzed with a text from my dad. "Emily, we're hosting family dinner tonight at 6 p.m. Be sure to bring the beach house keys. We need to check on the property maintenance." My hands shook as I read the message. The audacity, the casual assumption that I would just comply. This wasn't just a mistake. They had been playing me. Dinner at my parents' house had always been a predictable affair, one that I could almost set my watch to. The scent of my mother's homemade lasagna filled the air as I walked through the front door of their pristine suburban home. The dining room was set as usual, the delicate crystal glasses catching the light from the chandelier. My mom was humming in the kitchen, my dad was lounging in his favorite chair, and my younger brother, Nathan, was already seated at the table, absorbed in his phone. As I stepped in, his eyes barely lifted for a moment before he went right back to whatever was happening on his screen. It was a small thing, but it was one of those moments that felt like a sign that things weren't right. I handed my father the keys to the beach house as he stood to greet me. His eyes flickered when they landed on the keys, and for a brief second, I caught a glimmer of something. Panic? Perhaps. Before he masked it with a forced smile. His hand gripped the keys a little too eagerly, and it made my stomach twist. Something was off. So, what's the issue with the property? I asked, keeping my voice light and casual, though my insides were churning. I had spent hours earlier today going over everything, piecing together the loan documents and the forged signatures, and now the reality was hitting me hard. The weight of it hung like a dark cloud over me. Oh, just some minor repairs, my dad replied with that all-too-familiar tone of reassurance, but there was a crack in his voice. Nothing to worry about. I wasn't buying it. The way his hand trembled just a little as he took the keys from me. The way his eyes avoided mine. It wasn't just minor repairs. Couldn't be. Are you sure? I pressed, leaning in a little. Because last I checked, everything was fine. I've kept it up to date. I've even paid for the last round of maintenance myself. Before my dad could answer, my mother swooped in, ever the diplomat, smoothing things over. Let's eat, dear. We've all been busy today. We'll get to it later, she said, her tone warm, almost syrupy. But I wasn't about to let it go that easily. As we sat down to eat, the atmosphere was thick with tension. I could feel it in the way my mom and dad exchanged quick, nervous glances, in the awkward silence that settled over the table. My dad tried to fill the void with small talk, mentioning his latest golf game, but it all felt forced. There was a heaviness in the air, like we were all just going through the motions. I couldn't stop thinking about the loan documents, the forged signatures, the betrayal. Family? My mother began, her voice sweet like honey, but I could tell she was putting on a show. We've been thinking about retirement. Things haven't been easy financially. The market's been cruel to us. She placed her fork down with exaggerated care, her eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Really? I asked, my voice calm, almost too calm. What kind of setbacks are we talking about? I knew exactly where this conversation was going. I had been through enough family dinners to recognize the patterns, the subtle manipulation, the guilt-tripping, the hints that something wasn't as simple as it seemed. But this time, something felt different. I could sense the tension in their voices, the careful phrasing. There was something more, something they weren't telling me. Well, my dad began, leaning forward with an air of urgency. We've had a few misfortunes, but we were thinking that maybe you could help us out, just until things improve. His words hung in the air, like a trap that I could already see coming. I set my fork down slowly, the weight of the moment sinking in. This was it. This was the moment when everything I had worked for was about to be bargained away. Help you out? I echoed, my voice tinged with disbelief. How? Well, my mother interrupted, her voice turning cold, the warmth replaced by something sharper, more calculating. You've been so successful. We've always supported you, and now it's your turn to support us. We've had to make some sacrifices. Her words felt like a slap in the face. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. By sacrificing my beach house, you mean? I said, my voice cutting through the air more sharply than I intended. Both of them flinched. My father's smile faltered, the cracks in their facade widening. For a moment, there was nothing but silence, broken only by the soft clinking of silverware. My mother's fingers tightened around her wine glass, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. You know, my dad said slowly, his voice lower now, we were thinking of selling it, clear some debts. It'll be the perfect solution for everyone. Perfect for whom? The words almost escaped my mouth before I could stop them. I could feel the blood rushing to my face, the anger rising like a storm in my chest. Perfect for whom? I demanded, my voice rising. This house is mine, and it was paid for with my money, not yours. You didn't contribute a dime. This is my success, not yours. So don't even think about it. The calm veneer of my parents shattered, and I saw them for what they truly were. "Everything you have is because of us," my mother snapped, her voice raw with frustration. "We gave you everything. You owe us." I pushed my chair back with a screech, the sound cutting through the silence like a knife. "You took. You always took. And now you're trying to take my future too." My hands shook as I stood, the weight of the betrayal too much to bear. The room fell silent, the air thick with the tension of unspoken words, broken promises, and lies. I could feel their eyes on me, guilt, shame, and disbelief in their gazes. But I was done. Done with their manipulation. Done with their lies. The house I had worked so hard for wasn't just some piece of property to them. It was a symbol of their failed attempts to control me. I had built this life, this success, on my own terms, and I wasn't about to let them take it from me. Knock knock. Now you're about to watch the best part of the story. But before that, make sure to subscribe to my channel so we can keep going together. My father, the one who always had the silver tongue, now looked like a man caught in a lie, his smooth demeanor completely stripped away. The warmth and charm he once exuded were gone, replaced with the cold, harsh reality of what he had done. His usual confidence was replaced with a nervous energy as he stared at his hands. "We didn't mean for things to get out of hand," he muttered, his voice faltering, his eyes avoiding mine. He looked anywhere but at me, his face flushed with what I could only interpret as shame. The room was still, and the air felt thick with the weight of his words. I had expected this moment for weeks, but now that it was here, it was more suffocating than I imagined. His failure to look me in the eye was all the proof I needed that the betrayal ran deep. I wasn't going to let him escape this. Not this time. "Did you forge my signature on those loan papers?" I asked, my voice calm, steady, but laced with the quiet rage I had been holding onto for too long. The question hung in the air, and I watched my father stiffen as if the question itself was a physical blow. The silence that followed was unbearable. It was as if time had stopped, the only sound the distant hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My father's gaze dropped to the floor, unable to meet mine, and I saw his shoulders slump. He knew it and I knew it too. He couldn't deny it any longer. The guilt radiated off of him, almost palpable. Before he could say anything, my mother, ever the manipulator, swiftly interjected, her voice a sharp contrast to the quiet that had filled the room. She straightened her back, her hands folded neatly on the table in front of her, as if the formality of it all could somehow control the chaos of this moment. "You don't understand," she said, her tone deliberately soothing, but there was an edge to it that made my skin crawl. "We had no choice. You've done so well. You've built your life and we've supported you every step of the way. You need to do the same for us now." My jaw tightened. Every word she spoke was designed to pull me back into the web she had spun for me. I wasn't buying it anymore. The same tired manipulation I had heard so many times before, always disguised as support, had finally reached its breaking point. "No," I said, standing up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. "You don't get to guilt-trip me anymore. You've lied and stolen from me for years." My voice cracked slightly, but it wasn't out of sadness. It was out of sheer frustration, the kind that built up over a lifetime of small betrayals. "I've worked so hard to get where I am, and I didn't get here by stealing from other people. You've been using me like I was your personal ATM, and now you think you can just take whatever you want from me." My mother's face twisted in anger, but it wasn't the kind of anger I expected. It wasn't righteous or self-defending. It was a mix of desperation and rage, the kind you see from someone who's been caught red-handed but refuses to admit their wrongdoing. "That was different," she hissed, her voice rising. "We paid everything off. You're acting like we haven't done everything we could for you. You're better off now because of us." I stared at her, my chest tightening. The nerve, the audacity. "No, you didn't pay anything off." "I did," I snapped. "You ruined my credit when I was 18. You took out credit cards in my name and maxed them out. I spent years fixing it. You don't get to rewrite history." And now you want to sell the house I worked so hard to buy, just because you want to fix your mess. The anger on my mother's face faded, replaced by something colder, more calculated. She leaned back in her chair, smoothing her dress as if the argument had shifted in her favor. You don't understand the pressures we've been under, she said, her voice soft now, but there was still an undercurrent of manipulation. We had to take risks we thought we could control. But now we need help. This is about survival, Emily. You're in a position to help us now, just like we helped you when you were struggling. I shook my head, fighting the rising anger in my chest. Struggling? I laughed bitterly. You mean when you made sure I couldn't even get an apartment because you ruined my credit? And then you asked me to help you with your bills when I could barely pay rent? My father, still silent, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The man who used to boast about his financial acumen, the one who taught me how to manage my money, now seemed like a shadow of himself. There was no fight left in him, just the quiet surrender of someone who knew they were cornered. You think I owe you? You think because you supported me when I was young, that means you get to take everything I've built? I could feel the words coming out faster now, sharper, more venomous than I had ever intended. You've been taking from me since I was a kid. And now you're trying to take my future too. The table fell silent again. My brother, Nathan, who had been glued to his phone throughout the conversation, finally glanced up at me, his face pale, like he just realized what was really happening. He shifted uncomfortably, putting the phone down slowly, as if it had finally dawned on him that the family he thought he knew wasn't what it seemed. Did you know about this? I asked him, my voice barely above a whisper. But the question cut through the silence like a knife. Did you know they were planning to take my house? Nathan looked down at his hands, his lips pressing into a tight line. He fidgeted nervously, his gaze darting between me and our parents. I didn't know the details, he stammered, his voice cracking. But I knew something was off. I've seen how they've been acting, but I didn't want to believe it. My gaze turned back to my parents, and this time, there was no holding back. You took out credit cards in my name, I repeated, my words now cutting with precision. You gambled away my college fund. You've been using me as your personal ATM, and I'm done. I'm not going to sit here and let you keep taking from me. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She closed it again, trying to regain composure. We paid everything off, she repeated, as if saying it enough times would make it true. Now we need the house. You don't have a choice. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. You're right about one thing. I don't have a choice. You made that choice for me years ago. And now, I'm making the choice to finally stand up for myself. The weight of the moment settled over me like a cold fog, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was free. Free from the manipulation, the guilt, the constant taking. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. This house, my life, everything I had built, it was mine, and I wasn't going to let them destroy it. The silence stretched between us, thick with the truth that had finally been exposed. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. But for the first time in years, I felt like I had the power to take control of my own story. I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about taking back my life, my future. My hands shook as I picked up my phone, but my mind was clearer than it had ever been. There was no turning back now. I scrolled through my inbox, finding the email from Suncoast Bank. The same email I had read over and over again in disbelief earlier that day. The documents, the signatures, the lies. I opened it, my thumb hovering over the keyboard as I crafted the words that would mark the point of no return. You have 24 hours, I typed, my fingers trembling slightly as I hit the keys, to confess everything. Otherwise, I'll go to the authorities. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. A final ultimatum that I knew I had to follow through on, no matter the cost. I stared at the email for a few more seconds, feeling a rush of empowerment that I hadn't felt in years. I hit send, and with that click, everything changed. The decision was made. There was no turning back. Standing up from the table, I felt the weight of my resolve settle into my bones. I wasn't just walking away from the dinner table. I was walking away from a lifetime of manipulation, of emotional blackmail, of people who had never seen me as their daughter, but as their means to an end. "You want the house?" I said, not to anyone in particular, but as a declaration of my intentions. "Fine, but it's not going to happen. Not this time. Not ever." I could hear my mother's voice calling after me, the desperation seeping through her words. "Emily, wait. This isn't how it's supposed to go." But I didn't turn back. Not this time. I had had enough. I was done with their manipulation, done with their lies, and most of all, done with being their pawn. The cold night air hit me like a slap as I stepped outside, and for the first time in a long time, I breathed freely. The sky above was clear, the stars distant, yet somehow comforting. They seemed to shine a little brighter tonight, as though acknowledging the decision I had made. I didn't go straight home. Couldn't. I needed time to clear my head, to steel myself for what was coming next. I drove aimlessly for a while, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight that my knuckles ached. My mind was still racing, replaying everything I had just left behind. My parents, their expressions, their desperate pleas. But this time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next morning, I walked into my lawyer's office, ready to take the final step. I had already made the call. I had already secured the paperwork, and now all that was left was the fight. As I entered the sterile, professional environment of the office, the sharp scent of coffee and the quiet buzz of conversation reminded me of the gravity of what I was about to do. This wasn't just a case. It was my life, my future, and the truth was finally going to be heard. My lawyer, Michaela, greeted me with a reassuring smile, though I could tell from the tightness around her eyes that she was as tense as I was. She knew what was at stake. "Ready?" she asked, standing behind the desk, flipping through a thick folder of documents. "More than ever," I replied, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. It was time. We sat down, and Michaela handed me a stack of legal papers, evidence that would expose my parents for the frauds they were. "These are the forgeries, the accounts they've opened in your name, the money they've siphoned off you for years," she said, pointing to various sections. "This is the evidence we need to take them down." For a moment, I just stared at the papers, letting the weight of it all settle in. The fraud, the deceit, all of it had been building up for years, a slow crescendo that had led to this moment. Michaela paused, looking me directly in the eye. "You're sure about this, Emily? Once we move forward, there's no going back." "I'm sure," I said, and I meant it. There was no hesitation now, no doubt. The decision was final, and this was the only way to break free from their grasp. I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The next few days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and legal procedures. My parents, as expected, tried to spin the narrative, painting themselves as victims. Their lawyer reached out, offering a settlement. "We don't want to go to trial," he said in his message. "But Emily needs to understand that this could ruin her family." Ruin my family? I thought. It already was ruined. They'd already taken everything from me. I was ready. Michaela and I had everything lined up. Every document, every record, every piece of evidence we needed to show the world what my parents had been hiding. When the trial date arrived, I was nervous, but I didn't show it. I had already made peace with the fact that this was the only way to take control of my life. The court case unfolded just as I had imagined. My parents tried to play the victim, spinning their lies and manipulating the truth, but the evidence spoke for itself. The forged signatures, the stolen money, the records of fraudulent loans. It all came out. They couldn't hide behind their lies any longer. I watched as the jury listened intently, as the lawyers presented the evidence. It was surreal, but also incredibly empowering. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't the one being manipulated. I was in control, and I wasn't backing down. The proceedings dragged on for hours, but I didn't feel exhausted. I felt alive, as though the weight of years of guilt and shame had been lifted from my shoulders. My parents sat on the other side of the courtroom, their expressions twisted in anger, but it didn't matter anymore. This was my moment, and I was finally taking it. When the judge finally made the ruling, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The fraud charges were clear, the evidence irrefutable. My parents were found guilty, and the judge handed down a sentence that would change their lives forever. As I walked out of the courtroom, Michaela beside me, I could feel the weight of the victory settling in. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the city, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at peace. I had taken back my life. My future was mine again. So, what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, feelings, or any feedback you have. Was it a satisfying journey? Do you agree with the choices made along the way? Feel free to drop your comments below. I'm eager to hear your perspective. And hey, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories coming your way. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to share the next chapter with you. Thanks so much for sticking around until the end of this one. You're the reason I keep telling these stories.